right, boys. 2024, week 7. Let's get into it. Started off last week with 2 winless teams left in the league. We had Firecrotch and Thunder at the helm. Both haven't gotten a win in 7 long weeks, but one finally got off the schneid. I was picking one of them. It was a Ryan versus the Firecrotch week. So did Firecrotch get the win? No, he did not. He is still winless. As I said, this game would be closer than Yahoo predicted it, and it was very close. Very, very exciting game. After the first 1 o'clock games were played, Firecrotch really living up to his name. He was on fire. He had Chicago, who absolutely blew out the Jags, with Caleb and Swift combining for 50-plus points. So a huge advantage going into the 4 o'clock games. Unfortunately, he lost Olave early, and I think it was his running back also. So 2 players went out without scoring a point. Now, to be fair, Ryan did have James Cook, who also didn't play in his lineup. So we'll just say he lost Olave. So that's tough. He ended up scoring 160 points. I mean, you got to win with 160 points, right? Well, Ryan ended up with 176, thanks in large part to 2 touchdowns of Caleb's going to Keenan Allen, so that helped out on Ryan's side. But the big win for Ryan was a 20-point week out of his kicker. That's a tough loss for you, Firecrotch. However, it was good first win by our weatherman. Thunder is taking his show on the road this week to London. He's out there to watch the Jags game, so enjoy your vacation while you're out there, Thunder, but try to bring us home a win because last week was just brutal for the Jags. So let's hope they get back on it, and congrats on your first win. So that means Firecrotch is in the lead for the Sacco. He is our only winless team, and your commish is now 4-2 on the season for predictions. The only 2 I've lost have been when I picked Thunder, our other winless now for 1-win team. So more importantly, I had another win last week. I told you guys to hammer the over in the Zona game. That's right. Boom, 1-0 on my bet recommendations. So where you at, Thunder? You gotta start listening. I'll bring you some more goodies. So who do we got this week? There's nothing like a little father-son rivalry. So we've got my cat bro, Cooper, versus his son, Max, the Niner fan. Both teams are 4-2, and they have scored nearly identical amount of points on the season. They're within 8 points of each other on the season. So very, very close matchup. Both teams in good shape. Not a lot of buys. So we got a pretty good one we're going to preview this week. So let's start off with quarterback. On Cooper's side, we've got Kyler in Goff versus Max's Purdy and Mahomes. Cooper bringing out 2 fairly disappointing QBs on the season. I mean, at least for me. I had Kyler and Goff as my kind of lower end starters that could end up in the top 5 if things went right. Kyler's just not getting it done. He has only broken the 20-point threshold twice so far this season, and he gets a top 5 pass defense in the Chargers. He's throwing the ball about 30 times a game, so I guess, a multi-TD game isn't impossible, but I'm not betting on it. So he's just not getting it done. The strangest thing for him is he's not running very much, so his floor is just much lower than I thought it would be going into the season. That's really why I thought he could end up as a sleeper top 5 kind of quarterback, but just not happening for him, so don't expect too much out of him this week versus the Chargers. Now, while Goff has been disappointing on the season, he is coming off back-to-back 30-point games, and the Lions' offense finally looks like it's getting on track. I actually wanted to bet Goff as the MVP candidate and the long shot for us because I thought the Lions' offense would roll this year, and they haven't. But the past 2 weeks, they seem, like I said, to be getting that stride back. The only issue is the Lions take on the Vikings. I wrote about this earlier in the year. Brian Flores is calling a great defense in Minnesota. They have allowed the sixth fewest points to fantasy quarterbacks. So I don't see a whole lot of upside, But the Vegas line is 51, so it's the second highest point total on the week. If they're predicting that type of score, I mean, Goff has to put up some points. So that'll be a good game to watch. I think I'll be curious, and hopefully that one's on TV for us. On Mac's side, he rolls out his boy Purdy. You got to take his Niner. Despite being second in passing yardage on the season, so Purdy has put up the yardage. He's had a pretty disappointing fantasy season. Just like Kyler, he has only broken the 20-point barrier twice. He's just missing it in the end zone. Just some quick fun facts. I know we got some Niner fans, so you'll probably enjoy this. But if not, they're always an interesting offense just to kind of analyze, because Shanahan's just a genius. So just some fun facts kind of about Purdy. So Purdy has the second most green zone attempts. Green zone is like the red zone, except instead of within 20, within the 10. So he's the second most green zone attempts this year. So he's throwing the ball a lot within the 10-yard line. You would think that means a lot of TDs. Debo and Ayuk don't have a single green zone TD on the season. In fact, combined, they only have one TD on the season. Yes, Kittle's having a great year, but that's not a good stat. The San Fran offense it's changing this year, and I'm just not sure it's for the better. They've been very successful with these kind of short yardage, middle of the field, type of throws. And Purdy this year has an ADOT of 10 yards. Just to give you some perspective, his average has been an 8-yard ADOT, so how far the ball travels in the air, average depth of target. So he's throwing further down the field. So another example of that is last year he was 11th in air yards. This year he's second in air yards, meaning how far the ball, again, travels in the air total on all of his attempts. So he's throwing the ball deeper, which is great if it's working. Sure, I'll take a 40-yard pass over a 5-yard pass or reception, but the problem is those plays have a lower percentage completion for good reason. I mean, they're just harder throws to make, and then the defense is just set up, like I've talked about this year, with the high deep safeties. They're set up to beat that. I mean, that is how defenses are playing football right now. So those deep passes can just kill drives. Instead of moving the chains, they're kind of getting off the field on third down. So it's been interesting to kind of watch them, instead of kind of work their way down the field methodically. Purdy's just throwing it down into deep coverage. And again, if you don't believe those stats, the Niners have always been, the yak team. That's how they move the ball. Well, the Niners yak this year is the lowest it's been since Purdy has been under center. So, it'll be interesting just to see what happens with this offense, especially when C-Mac comes back. I think right now it's not as successful as it will be, because the safeties have no reason to cheat up. They don't really care if Jordan Mason is running on them. They care if they're catching passes. So I think when C-Mac comes back and you've got a passing threat out of the backfield, defenses are going to be forced to play differently. So right now they're kind of taking away that deep crossing pattern that Ayuk, just loves to run. That's his jam. He wants these deep, long routes, and they're just not open right now. And I think when C-Mac gets back, that should open up. Anyway, enough Niner talk. It's just interesting to see how the offense is changing. But getting back to Purdy, he gets the Chiefs. The Chiefs are one of the toughest defenses in the league. I don't care what the stats say. You watch them play, and they are just tough. So I do not expect much from Purdy this week. On the other side, the Niners play Kansas City, and he has Mahomes. The Niners have been okay on defense this year. They're not dominant as they have been in the past, but they're not bad either. And they're at home. So I think that, the Niners have a shot to really slow down Kansas City. But I say slow down. They've been terrible for fantasy this year. Mahomes has a high watermark of a single game of 22 points. I mean, he has been under 20 points every game. The offense is just not great right now in Kansas City. So I'm going to go with the edge to Cooper. Not a great week for this group for either team, but I'm just going to bet Goff figures it out versus Minnesota in a high over-under a game. So, edge to Cooper there, but I'm not, excited about this group. Okay, moving on to wide receiver. Both teams did start a wide receiver in the flex, so both have 4. So I'm just going to kind of preview that here. So the 4 wide receivers on Cooper's side is Amon-Ra, Devonta, Brian Thomas Jr., Cooper Kupp. On Max's side, we got Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Reed, T. Higgins, and Antonio Pierce. So when you do the zero running back strategy, you better get some good wide receivers. And Cooper did that for sure. While Minnesota's been great on defense, they have not been great against wide receivers. Their defense allows the second lowest points in the league in real life. So they're only allowing about 15 points per game. So very, very low. And they're one of the best. I think they're third, but somewhere in the top 5 at stopping the run. So they're a good real-life defense, but for fantasy, they actually allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers in fantasy. So they have not been a good matchup or good defense against wide receivers. So if what you're telling me is Amon-Ra and Goff get that, man, that's a 20-point week coming for Amon-Ra, I think. I mean, that's just he should really have a great week. So love that matchup. And then I love what I've been seeing out of Brian Thomas outside of the dropped touchdown last week. But he's been great, and they're using him more and more. Evan Ingram coming back should help move the chains. The Patriots are just not a very good team really at all this year. Their defense, though, has been more disappointing. I didn't expect much out of their offense. I thought their defense would be better. They just haven't been. And they have to travel to Europe. Well, the Jags were already there. I think that is an advantage for them. So I think Brian Thomas also could have a very good game this week. If he doesn't get 15, I'd be surprised. And then assuming Kupp plays, there is certainly a question mark there. But if he does, he gets a bad Raiders defense. He should just absolutely destroy them. There's no other game in town. Stafford doesn't. There's no other receivers stepping up to do anything. Stafford should obviously target Kupp. It wouldn't surprise me if he has literally 20 targets this game. He only has one tough matchup, and that's Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith gets a solid Giants pass rush. They're not the best or anything, but they're a pretty good pass rush. The reason I mention that is because Jalen Hurts looks bad. I didn't like him before, but I like him even less now. He's just not a good passer. He looks terrible. And if the pressure that the Giants bring can actually get to Hurts and get him flustered, I don't think Devonta has a very good game. I think he could be in for kind of a dud week. So I don't know, call it 10, 12 points out of Devonta, I think is kind of my upside for him. On the other side, Max rolls out the other junior, Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't think he's playing this week. He just had a concussion. So I am going to actually kind of nix Marvin Harrison out and put in Lockett. And I think Lockett's he's fine. He's been solid 10 to 13 points every week. Only one time did he score under 10, and he scored 9.6. So, 10 to 13, that's solid. But where Max needs to get excited is for T. Higgins. That guy gets the Browns. The Browns are an absolute mess. Burrow's, on fire. This is kind of why I didn't want to draft him, because he's this boom-bust guy, and I wasn't sure when he'd boom with the injury. Well, he's booming. He is back. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if both Higgins and Chase come out this week with 20-point weeks. I just think they pass all over Cleveland. So Jaden Reed is next up, and he gets the Texans. The implied point total is 28 for the Texans, 28 for Green Bay and 20 for the Texans. No way. There is no way this game stays at 47.5 points. Take the over on it. I think somebody is going to blow up in the Green Bay wide receiver core. I have no idea how to predict who, but somebody's going to have a big day, because I think the Texans get more than 20, and we see a lot of passing in this game. So we'll see if it's Jaden Reed. He seems to be the one to bet on, but who knows? I mean, Love, distributes that ball, so we'll see. Alec Pierce is his last receiver here. This guy is the definition of boom bust. He had 3 games this year with over 15 points. The other 3 games, under 5. So, take your poison. Is the guy going to catch a 60-yard bomb or not? Because he's fast. That's what he does. I don't know. I'm calling it a bust this week. He gets Miami. Miami's, we're not very good on defense right now, but we're pretty decent at pass defense, mostly because we do have 2 Pro Bowlers in the backfield, Ramsey and Holland at safety. But it's really more because our run defense is terrible, and I don't expect the Colts, particularly if they're starting Anthony Richardson, to do anything but run. So, I mean, like I said, Pierce needs 1 catch, so maybe he does it, but I would bet on this being one of his busts weeks. So, a low scoring, running up the middle type of game, not really going to help Pierce. So edge here definitely goes to Cooper, and I mean, it is significant. I think he wins this group in a landslide. So moving on to running back, we got Chuba Hubbard and Brian Robinson versus Kamara and Zach Moss. So Chuba is just, man, I want to chant the dude's name and just give him a big hug. Say, man, you are getting it done. I think he was undrafted or drafted late or whatever. And the guy he is rolling. I mean, Carolina might be terrible, but he has 92 yards in 4 straight games. Rushing. Not total, rushing. He's just getting it done. And Washington's pass defense is definitely bad, but their run defense is middle of the pack, mostly because teams pass on. But if Deontay Johnson doesn't play for Carolina, I mean, I don't know how Chuba isn't the centerpiece of a game plan. And this is actually the highest over-under on the week at 51.5 points, which surprised me. But I think that means that Chuba, has to get one in terms of a touchdown. Has to get one if that's the over-under. So I think Chuba has a good week coming. And then, of course, he's got Brian Robinson in the same game. They're going against each other. And Carolina is the worst. They are dead last. They give up the most points to fantasy running backs in the league. So this is just matchup heaven for Cooper. Max definitely found himself a gem in Kamara on draft day. He's had more than 20 catches, not 20 catches, but 20 touches in every game this season. We're 6 weeks in, and he has 6 TDs. He's been great. Denver, a solid defense that he's going up against, but I really don't care. Kamara had 8 receptions last week from Rattler. I expect more of the same from the rookie quarterback, so I think Kamara's floor is very high. Now, and while the Browns, they're a complete mess, Zach Moss in the running game, I don't know. The Browns' pass defense is worse than the rush defense. The rush defense is okay, and like I said, I just see Burrow go nuts. So I don't think Moss has a big game, and he's clearly playing hurt the past 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 60-40 split in Chase's direction this week. So another edge going to Cooper in the running back category. I mean, I just can't pick against these matchups. All right, moving on to our last group at tight end. We've got Trey McBride versus Brock Bowers. While I might be down on Kyler and in general on Arizona, I'm not down on McBride. He gets 8 targets literally every week. That's what he's averaging, a little over that actually. He's just a locked-in top 5 tight end every week, in my opinion. The only problem here is he goes up against Bowers. And Bowers is about to feast on targets, like Thanksgiving-style feast. With Adams now in New York, and all of the receivers in Vegas, being injured, and all of them being questionable, Bowers might have 15 targets against the Rams, and the Rams give up the second most points to tight ends. And I'm not exaggerating here. Bowers had 10 and 12 targets the past 2 weeks. I would not be surprised at all if he had 15 plus targets. If there's a way to find a prop bet on targets, I don't care what the line is. Go take it, bet the over. Bauer's going to get a lot of targets this week. So we'll see what he does with them. But I definitely, edge goes to Max here. And edge probably every week goes to Max at tight end because his backup is Sam Laporta, who's sitting on his bench. So Max, if you're listening, you gotta trade Laporta, man. Gotta get something for him. He's just riding your pine. All right. So to close it out, pick of the week, no surprise. I'm taking Cooper, and I think Cooper wins convincingly. I'm talking like 15 points or more. Just great matchups this week. I think that Max has had a good year so far. His team is solid. It's just not a good week for him in terms of matchups. So, Cooper, this week's for you. And that pretty much does it for the pod. Yeah, that's about it. Looking forward to seeing you guys this Sunday, watching some games. So that's it. Peace out.